Hello, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. So the Wallabies against the All Blacks at the MCG. 85,000 apparently going to be in the house this weekend for the Bledisloe. The final round of the Rugby Championship. Going to be looking ahead to that in this video. Make sure you drop a comment down below. Give me your thoughts. Tell me your views on the two teams, where they are at this moment in time, and anything that I touch upon in the video as well. If you can like the video, I'd really appreciate it. It just gives it a little boost. And also subscribe to the channel as well. With the Rugby World Cup on the horizon, I'm hoping to be out in France for a fair chunk of it. Make sure you don't miss anything that happens on this channel. But let's get into it. So these are two sides, as we all know, in contrasting form after the opening couple of rounds of the Rugby Championship. Australia, with all the hope of Eddie Jones coming in, could he work his magic? It's been a pretty tough start to life under his second stint as head coach of the Wallabies. Big defeat against the Springboks, no shame in that, at altitude, and then a really disappointing, gut-wrenching last-minute defeat to Argentina at home. So it is a big game for the Wallabies. I'm going to start with them because their team selection's a little bit more interesting. I'll get on to the All Blacks, who are flying at the moment at the start of this Rugby World Cup year, and that's actually, for me, the most interesting thing to talk about at this moment in time when it comes to the All Blacks. It's been a bit of a contrast to how we've seen them start previous World Cup years, but I'll get on to that. Let's start with the Wallabies. I'll whack the team up on screen, and I'll get into it in more detail in just a moment, but I just wondered, and I'm really interested in all your thoughts on this, whether when I look at this Wallabies team at the moment, I look at the team selection, and is everything to do with Australia at the moment about more than the here and now? Is it about more than just the Rugby Championship and even more than just the World Cup? And I know there'll always be a selecting sides that they think can go out and do the job and get a victory at the weekend. But I wonder whether a lot of this is about restoring interest in rugby in Australia and about building ahead of the Lions tour. I think when Eddie Jones was appointed, that was a big reason for it. Yes, they had an opportunity to go out and get a very experienced coach with a very good track record across his career. They thought that would give them a boost in terms of their performances now. But I also think the character he is, just the interest they hope that will generate in Australia as they fight for attention with AFL, cricket, rugby league, to get union back on the map. And I think a massive part of this second stint for Eddie Jones is about trying to enhance the profile of rugby union in Australia, in particular ahead of that Lions tour. And this weekend, the reason I mention it in this video looking ahead to the Bledisloe, is this game's at the MCG, 85,000 people, which is a really good crowd. I mean, it's still probably about 15,000 shy of capacity, around that, but even so, a really, really strong crowd. And when the Lions come to town in a couple of years' time in 2025, when that tour takes place, they're going to have a test match at the MCG as well. So for me, there's kind of, as much as this game is exciting and as much as I'm quite interested in the team they've selected, I just still feel at this moment in time that there's almost bigger things at play as well, whilst they do want to win now if they can, although obviously they haven't been able to so far. I don't know, let me know your thoughts on that. I think that's a big reason that Eddie Jones was selected. And actually, if you watch his press conference, he speaks about that a lot. He speaks about the fact that all the kids in Australia want to play AFL. He talks about the fact that, you know, they're going to the MCG and there's going to be 85,000 people there. I think that is quite a significant thing at the moment. But let's talk about the team, because it is inexperienced. I think when you compare these two lineups, the All Blacks and the Wallabies, it is a massive contrast in experience and strength. And All Blacks will already be heavy favourites, and Eddie Jones has been very quick to point out no one thinks they can beat them. He's loving having the tag of the underdogs, whether they can spring a surprise. You look at these two starting 15s, in fact, you look at the match day 23s, and even though the Wallabies have more experience coming off their bench with the likes of Slipper, Quade Cooper, Nick White there, their starting 15 is pretty inexperienced. And to me, again, that just suggests that they're building. I know they will believe they can get a victory, and who knows, maybe if the All Blacks aren't on their game, then maybe they can surprise them. We saw a brilliant game in Melbourne at Marvel Stadium a year ago with obviously the controversial reversed free kick right at the end for the All Blacks to sneak a win. So who knows, maybe this Wallabies 23 is capable of upsetting the All Blacks. But on paper, I'm looking at it and I have to say, I don't know, it looks like a pretty tough ask. There are a few positions that I think is exciting, and actually probably my second takeaway from the teams really, if you look across the Rugby Championship that Australia are selecting, is in a weird way, injuries are a positive for them at the moment because it is forcing them to rotate and to experiment. If you look at Tom Hooper in the back row, because Michael Hooper's out injured, a great opportunity for him to see how he can do. I think this is, again, another different centre partnership for them. Third match in a row that's changed in this Rugby Championship, partly because Karevi's been coming back, Pataya's injured, those guys now link up, which on the surface I think could be really, really good. The thing with Jordan Pataya, ever since he broke through, has always just been issues with injuries. In terms of his talent, I mean, him and Karevi, if they can get minutes under their belt, if they could be a consistent centre partnership for Wallabies, I have very little doubt that they could be very successful. But so there's a few question marks like that, and I think the injuries are allowing Australia to experiment. Let's see how they get on. But as I've mentioned already, get on to that All Blacks team, and it's just so strong, isn't it? We saw what they could do in the opening 20 against the Springboks, and again they've gone with a really, really strong side here. Not much in the way of changes, and that I think is what is interesting, because I remember in my Rugby Championship preview video that I did on this channel, I spoke about the All Blacks and how typically they don't win this competition during a World Cup year. They very much try to peak when it gets to the World Cup. It was something that they were able to identify before winning in 2011, actually, all those years when the All Blacks went into World Cups as favourites, and through various reasons, whether it be a bit of bad luck, some poor performances, they didn't quite get over the line. It was always that thing of the All Blacks don't peak at World Cups. They addressed that heading into 2011, and we've seen the success they had then and then in 2015. So this is kind of a different approach, I think. I think they've gone a lot stronger a lot earlier this year. What that means, well, we'll wait and see in terms of an impact later in the year. But I think for this game, they recognise the importance of it. And I think they're looking to put down a marker ahead of France. You know, if they can dispatch Australia this weekend, as most people would probably expect them to do, then, you know, it is a statement. I think they made a statement against the Springboks, and they'll probably look to do that again here against Australia. In terms of the team selection, I'm looking forward to seeing Cam Roigard potentially coming off the bench and what he brings into the team. We know how good Aaron Smith is, but the options they have coming in the second half, it's so important, isn't it, scrum half? It's one of my frustrations with the three scrum halves in the England setup at the moment in their World Cup training camp, in terms of Danny Care, Jack Van Portfleet and Ben Youngs. And I just think there's better options in England to give them that little bit of spark of one of them, of someone coming off the bench. So it's key. I know Cam Roigard, really, really good in Super Rugby. Looking forward to seeing what he does for the All Blacks. Caleb Clark still there, which seems to frustrate a lot of the fans. Seems to me like Ian Foster just likes him, right? And I know he had that brilliant game, whenever it was, a couple of years ago, where he absolutely tore it up, scored 4 tries or whatever, and a lot of people suggesting his form doesn't warrant his consistent selection for the All Blacks. Foster clearly likes him, and I think we're going to continue to see him. And I like the fact that you've got Will Jordan on the wing again. I thought he was excellent against Springboks. Overall, I think it's just, you know, if you're Australia looking at that team, it is pretty intimidating. But as I say, yeah, my biggest takeaway, I know we could go into different selections, and I'm sure plenty of you in the comments will be saying you want to see Stevenson there, or you don't want to see Bowden Barrett at 15 and all that sort of stuff, which we've mentioned already. The most interesting thing for me, the All Blacks at this moment in time, is that they are going stronger this year than they normally do in a World Cup year. And that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out later on this season. Drop a comment down below, give me your thoughts on kind of everything I've touched upon in the video, and your thoughts generally on this game. Does anyone think the Wallabies are actually going to do it? I just can't see it. Make sure you drop a comment down below, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.